Liechtenstein is famous for being a wealthy European microstate with a strong financial sector, its breathtaking mountainous scenery, its medieval castles like Vaduz Castle, its famous post museum which showcases every single issued stamp since 1912, and also being the world's leading manufacturer of false teeth. Liechtenstein currently has just one McDonald's outlet, which is the same as countries such as Cuba and Samoa. This is my experience of trying McDonald's in Liechtenstein. I think one of the first things that grabs your attention as you roll up to the McDonald's is the surrounding scenery. Take a look over the building's shoulder and you'll get a magnificent backdrop of the Liechtenstein mountains, which is quite a unique experience because of course McDonald's tend to be in very heavily populated urban outlets, so this is a nice change of pace. Walking in, it looks very modern, very clean, lots of touchscreen kiosks. There is the option to order in person. Looking through what was available, there was actually a surprising number of unique options that I hadn't seen before, so I had to do some narrowing down. So in the end I went for a paprika chicken burger. It was a smaller burger, so it's not one of the flagship burgers, similar in size to a hamburger and cheeseburger. I think it must be the same bun that they use for that one as well. Top layer was the bun, then you had that paprika sauce, then you had a chicken patty, then you had a slice of cheese, and then the lower lid of the bun. 6 Swiss francs and 30 cents. Pretty pricey just for the burger. That's not for a meal deal, that's just literally just for the burger. The patties tasted fairly similar to a standard crispy chicken burger, decent but not memorable. I would have liked a little bit more of that paprika sauce. I did try a little bit of the sauce on its own. It was nice. It had that sort of subtle amount of heat. When you start tasting it, you don't realise the heat and then it builds up, and I thought that quite worked pretty well. I just would have liked a larger quantity of that with the burger. For me, on balance, factoring in the price point, factoring in it was a smaller burger in spite of the relatively high price point, I just didn't really think it nailed the brief in total. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't memorable. The next thing that grabbed my attention was what looked to be a bit of a hybrid chicken McNugget. It seemed to be a chicken McNugget in the shape of a cross, but also with cheese in it. I have to say, I felt a little bit misled by the picture, because when I opened the box up, they seemed to be a fair bit smaller than what I was anticipating. 7.6 Swiss francs for that little box of 4 pieces. Liechtenstein, as its neighbour Switzerland, is quite pricey, let's say that. When you bite and take a look at the nugget, just visually it's difficult to see the cheese, but I'm pleased to say you can certainly taste it. It's actually surprisingly good and a little bit moreish. Certainly better than it looks, though still a tad little bit pricey. That of course brings me on to the final aspect. So we had the savoury elements. I'm now perusing the different dessert elements. I am a sucker for a McFlurry, and I noticed there's one called the Calier McFlurry. You can have a regular size one for 4.3 Swiss francs, or you can upgrade for an additional Swiss franc. I like a little bit of value, so I went for the maxi size. I thought it had to be done. I'm not too familiar with Calier products, so I went in a little bit blind. And first thing I'd say when I saw it was the topping was very generous. There's lots of crispy bits on top, and you could also see there were 2 different types of sauce, a caramel sauce and a chocolate sauce. And I thought it was a nice touch because quite commonly you'll just get one sauce. The balls had certainly a cereal vibe, a cereal that kind of is most reminiscent of them. For me, I felt with maybe the Cheerios, if you're familiar with that, but that's kind of what the taste reminded me of. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me, but I could certainly sense a little bit of honeycomb in there. I actually liked it. I think it was very full on in terms of the sweetness. There was just so many sweet flavours in there. Obviously the base vanilla McFlurry is fairly sweet. You got the sweet cereal, you've got a honeycomb, and then you've got 2 sauces which are both sweet as well. So it's a lot of sweetness in there. Some people might feel that there's too many flavours in there, but I liked it. Maybe it could be slightly improved on if you had possibly a more neutral element in there, or maybe even a fruit element to cut through that sweetness. But I was pleased with that. So in terms of my overall opinion of what I had, started off a little bit slow. The paprika burger was a little bit lackluster. It would have been elevated if it had more of that sauce, but it just lacked a little bit of flair at that price point, just to end up with a burger of a similar size to an entry-level hamburger or cheeseburger was a little bit disappointing. The second option that I went for, the sort of quirky take on a McNugget, throwing the cheese in there, whilst I was disappointed a little bit with the size again, was very, very tasty. It sort of exceeded my expectations going in there. I think that combination of the cheese with the chicken worked fantastically well, and I found myself polishing them off in no time. And then the piece de resistance, the McFlurry, very, very nice, very, very sweet. I think some people may be slightly put off by how sweet that was, but I enjoyed it. I like the crunch of the cereal in there. I like the note of the honeycomb in there as well. So I think overall it is a slightly positive experience, and I think it's just a little bit quirky dining in Liechtenstein, given that they've only got one McDonald's outlet and this is it, and then you've got the backdrop of the scenic mountain range behind you. So I think I probably would recommend this experience of trying McDonald's in Liechtenstein.